everyone, I'm Rakina and we are here today with Yolanda and we are going to be doing a sultry smoky eye on Yolanda today. Yolanda is over the age of 40 and she's proud of it, right?
I'm over the age, yeah. Well, I'm over the age of 50.
So we are going to do a smoky eye on her. That is always something that she's tried, but hasn't perfected it. So we are going to do that today. Today we are going to start with a caviar eyeshadow stick. So since we are doing a smoky eye, in my opinion, the best way to get the base nice and even and to have less steps is to start with an eyeshadow stick. That way you get the most color payoff. So we're just going to start a little bit with this plum color because Yolanda has this beautiful golden skin tone. Plum is going to be the color that's going to make her skin stand out the most. Pan close for me. So this eyeshadow stick is like my saving grace for smoky eye. You're going to apply it right, almost like you would do like a smudgy eyeliner. Close. Nope, because this is going to serve as your primer. This is a primer and eyeshadow in both. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eyeshadow applicator brush and I'm going to blend this out and up. The idea is that we don't want any harsh lines at all whatsoever. Now what she could do at home is that she could use her ring finger and blend this out on her own without an actual brush. Open. And as you can see, now she has a smoky eye already in one step. But we are going to add eyeshadow to this. So we're going to come on the other side and we're going to do the same thing. So a little bit goes a long way with these eyeshadow sticks. And if you wanted to, like for example, if you have more of an oily eyelid, you can go over top of this with a translucent powder, do a little bit of black eyeliner, mascara, and call it a day. But I want to deepen this smoky eye a little bit, so I think we're going to add a little bit of some bronze to this. There are no rules. I get that question a lot. That's actually a very common question is, can I still wear shimmer? Absolutely, but you want to watch your placement of the shimmer, right? So if you have an eyelid that has texture, you don't want to place the shimmer in the area that has the most texture. So maybe you place it in the corners of your eyes, or maybe you just pop a little bit in the center part of the eye. So we are going to go in with kind of a bronzy gold eyeshadow. Because I don't want this to look too deep. And close for me, please. And I am going to press this eyeshadow into the cream stick shadow that we just used. Also, when you're pressing the eyeshadow in, instead of rubbing it on the eyelid, you're not going to get a ton of fallout from the eyeshadow. So you're going to be able to keep the rest of your makeup neater if you started with foundation first. And again, starting at the base of the lash line, pushing my way up. And also when you start at the base of the lash line, that also helps you to not have any gaps from where the lashes start and where your eyeshadow starts. And next one I'm going to use is one of my favorite blending brushes, and I'm just going to go right in where her skin meets and the eyeshadow meet. And I'm just going to go back and forth like a windshield wiper, just so we don't have any harsh edges at all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to deepen this just a hair more. And I'm actually going to deepen this with a little bit of a reddish tone. Red and a little bit of some chocolate. And I'm going to go in the corner here. And I'm going to create almost like a little bit of a V shape. We're going to do a little bit of some liner. And we are actually going to do a technique called tight lining on Yolanda today. And what tight lining is when we line from underneath the lashes. And what that is going to do is it's going to bridge the gap between any of the hairs in the eyelash area. So what it's going to do is add definition without looking too defined and too structured. And to tight line her eyes, we are using almost a soft brown black I don't want to use black on her because I don't want it to come across as too structured and too aggressive. She has these beautiful features and we want to accentuate that and not overdo it. And so now it looks as though her lashes are more defined without us, again, creating an actual line. Since we are doing a smoky eye, we are going to go on top with some black. And we're going to use a waterproof roll-up pencil. And today I am using the Stila eyeliner. And I love this pencil too because it glides on the eyelid very easily and it's not going to pull and tug. So close for me. And as I'm lining, I'm pressing the liner directly into the lash line so as to not get too harsh of a line and to make sure that the line isn't too thick as well. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to go in a little bit tighter with the liner and I'm going to have you look up and over. Perfect. And just in this area here, bit more definition. Look at me. Perfect. Look down to the ground. Next, what we are going to do is we're going to apply some liner underneath, and we are actually going to use the same brown that we used to tight line the top part of her eyes with. We're going to use that underneath. More of that sultry look, and then I'm using my liner brush and I'm pulling down slightly so that there aren't any harsh edges. By smudging it out, I mean I'm rubbing back and forth and then slightly pulling out. And then also with your brush, the further back that you hold your brush, the less pressure you're going to have. And especially when using it underneath your eyes, you want to use less pressure. So instead of holding it here, you want to hold it further back here. So that way you aren't aggravating the fragile under eye area. And the same thing over here, we are going to smudge the eyeliner out and pull down, smudge out and pull down. It's going to kind of give it more of a gradiated look too. Okay, and now that we're finished with liner, we're actually going to go in and we're going to make this even smokier, and we are going to smoke it out with an eyeshadow. So the same color that we used in her crease, we're now going to bring underneath. So we're going to go in with this red tone and this brown tone, equal parts. And I'm using what's called a pencil brush, and I'm going to have you to look up. And I'm just ever so slightly going to go right underneath where the liner is. And now we are ready for some mascara. I like to apply it on top of the lashes and underneath of the lashes. That way the lashes are as black as possible. I'm gonna have you look down for me. Perfect. So since we're doing a smoky eye, we are also going to do some lashes on her, which we're excited about. Look down again. But I always love to put mascara on first just so the lashes blend in a little bit better. So now we're going to go in with some lashes, and I am going to do more of a demi wispy lash. However, the band on this lash is clear and I want this to look really dark and sultry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with eyeliner, and I am going to line the band of the eyelashes. So that way when we apply them to her lashes, we don't need to then go in with eyeliner and, backtrack. So the same thing with these. And ideally, when you are applying lashes at home, you want to measure the band of the lashes. So what that means is as you take them off, the smaller part goes on the inner corner of your eyes and the longer part goes on the outer part of your eyes. So what you want to do is where your lashes start, you want to place the smaller part, and then you want to measure where your lashes stop, and then you want to cut from the outside in. That way you don't have lashes that are going into your tear duct, which will make it very uncomfortable. Also, when I apply lashes to people, I like a band that's a little bit more flexible like this, because overall it's more comfortable on the person. And I prefer a lash adhesive that has a brush on it, because I find that it's easier to apply and it dries a little bit faster, which again makes the application much easier. You want it to be somewhat dry when it goes on your lashes as opposed to wet. Then it moves once you put it on. And with her lashes, we're going to place them right in the lash line. So ideally, I'm going to have you look down for me. Right where that little flap is right there, you want to press the lashes up under there so that the lashes look like they're coming out of your own eyelid, as opposed to placing them where the liner is. And then down, tilt your head slightly. And a good trick for you at home is, once you get the lashes on, I won't do it to her lashes because I have long nails, but you can take your own fingers and pinch the lashes together with your own lashes, so that way they are a little bit more smooth. But it looks as though we have a pretty good application on these. Open. And her eyelashes are flush with the false lashes. Ideally, when she turns from side to side, look this way, we don't want to see any of her own lashes. We want this to look like they're blended in together perfectly as they are. If you have a thicker lash, you don't need to actually line the band. But again, because this is such a thin band, you have like the little clear spots here. So that can look kind of awkward when you look down, because people can see lashes, but then they will see the clear part of the band. We don't want that to happen. We want it to look, again, as natural as possible. So another tip about the lashes is that when you are home, the closer your mirror, the better. Some people have a countertop and the mirror is further apart. If you can get a handheld mirror or a mirror that sits on your countertop that has a magnifying ability, it makes it so much easier for you to get really close and put those lashes on. So we have her lashes on perfectly. You'll be able to see a little bit of the white right now just because the glue is still drying. Because her lashes are sitting flush, we don't need to go back in with mascara, but if you wanted to and make them more dramatic, you can. We'll see at the end of this look how we feel, if we want to add more mascara or not. Okay, so one of my favorite things to do when I'm doing a smoky eye or any other eye where I have substantial fallout is I like to take eye cream and I like to clean up underneath the eye area. It's very soothing to the under eye. And also, you're doing 2 steps in one. Instead of using eye makeup remover and an eye cream, you're getting both steps in one. So I'm taking a little bit of eye cream and I'm cleaning up whatever may have fallen out from our smoky eye. That way she has a very flawless under eye look. And you can also take this and clean up anything underneath the brow area if you want to, just to make sure that everything looks very clean. And this is a caffeine eye cream, so it also will help with puffiness. So we're just going to go right here through the corner, so that way we have a really nice sharp edge. And then we're going to bring it over and over. She has a long night out, so we are going to make sure that her makeup stays on for a long period of time. So one of my favorite primers that's been around forever is the Dior Air Flash primer. And I love this primer because it color corrects and it smooths out the skin without silicone, and it's going to help her foundation to stay on longer. And I'm going to start in the center part of her face. It's very cold. And typically when you apply your products, whether it's foundation, whether it's primer, you always want to start in the center part of the face. And the center part of the face is always the area that usually has the most discoloration because it's always exposed to the sun. So that's the area that always needs a little bit more help than the rest of the face. So now that we've primed, we are next going to go in with a full coverage foundation. One of my favorite full coverage foundations is the NARS Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. The reason why I love this, especially for mature skin, is that it's full coverage. It's 16-hour wear. However, it has a radiant finish. So for people who may experience dryness, which is not a concern of hers, however, if you do experience dryness, it is going to wear super beautifully on your skin, but it won't sit in any sort of texture at all whatsoever. So with this foundation, you only need a little bit because it's very, very pigmented. So a little bit goes a long way. And I am actually going to use a sponge to apply this to help it look more skin-like. And I'm going to use the Caudalie Beauty Elixir on my sponge to again give it even more of a skin-like look. Turn your face to the side. And so you can apply this foundation with a sponge, you can apply it with a brush, or you can apply it with your fingers. So if you apply it with your fingers, it's going to automatically warm up the foundation as to give it more of that skin-like look automatically. If you apply it with a sponge, it's going to give it more of a skin-like look as well. The most coverage you're going to get is going to be from a brush. And that's because the brush has a tendency to apply the most product. So for her, we are using a sponge. Now I do not put foundation underneath the eyes because I like to keep the eyes light and bright. We are going to do that with her concealer. Now you can definitely go in with foundation underneath your eyes, but if you do that, I wouldn't suggest concealer. Keeping in mind that the skin underneath the eye is the thinnest skin on your whole body. So applying a foundation underneath your eye plus a concealer underneath your eye may look and feel heavy, especially if texture is a concern of yours. So if that's the case, you want to stick to applying just concealer underneath your eye and skip out on applying foundation and concealer underneath the eyes. For concealer, we are going to do the Soft Matte Complete Concealer. Now this is personally one of my favorites. The reason why I love this concealer is because it's full coverage and it has peptides in it and it has vitamins A, C, and E in it. So it is going to be flattering underneath the eyes, and you can also use it on spots. So since Yolanda says that one of her trouble areas is underneath her eyes, we're going to make sure that we conceal her, but we also want to make sure, again, it has a very skin-like natural look to it. We don't want it to look too over the top, and we don't want it to look too much like makeup. So I'm going to use a little baby beauty blender underneath her eyes. Look up. And we're only going to apply a little bit underneath the eyes. And then we're going to bring it through to the center part of the face as well. So the same spray that we use for her foundation is the same spray that we are going to use for this blender. And then I'm also bringing the concealer underneath her eyes. However, I'm not carving out her brow area. I'm simply using whatever remnants are left on the sponge to perfect the under eye area. We don't want to take concealer and overly draw it out. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to use that same concealer and I'm going to create a natural highlight. So I have a lot of women ask me about like how do they highlight their face, right? It's my opinion that creams have a tendency to look a little bit better than products that have shimmer in them. So we are going to use the same exact color that we use underneath her eyes and underneath her brows, but we're going to bring it down a little bit lower to create a natural highlight that looks more skin-like as opposed to a shimmery streak of color along the cheeks. And I'm choosing to use, again, the same little small tool because I want to be very intentional about where I'm placing the color. And it's my opinion that for us as women, the smaller tools are a little bit better. Sometimes you have to work a little bit harder, but because our faces are so small, when you use smaller tools, you have more control. So that's why I'm using this smaller blender as opposed to taking the bigger blender and just plopping concealer on her face. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to use a setting powder for down the center part of her face and underneath her eyes. Now, one of my favorite setting powders is the NARS Light Reflecting Setting Powder. The reason why this is one of my favorite setting powders is because it is talc free. Talc is an ingredient that absorbs oil and it absorbs shine, which is great if you have very oily skin. However, if your skin's more normal or if you're looking to set your under eye area, you want to stay away from talc because it can be kind of drying to the skin and the under eye area. So we are opting for this powder that is actually silica based, which will smooth the under eye without drying it out. And I'm using a very fluffy brush because we don't want to bake underneath the eyes. We just want to lightly set the under eye. And a little bit goes a very long way. And I'm also going to bring it along the brow bone as well because that's an area that has a tendency to get a little bit shiny sometimes for most people. And I find that it's easier if you work from the cap of the product so that way you don't get too much product on your brush and you're wasting product. Less dense the brush, the less powder is going to apply. So you want to stick with a brush that isn't too dense, again, because you don't want to overly powder your face. You just want to lock it in. Anytime you're using creams, for the most part, you want to lock it in unless your skin is very, very dry. So we are going to opt for a liquid blush, and we are going to use more of a I would call this more of a sheer orange color. And with liquid blush, the reason why I love it so much is because it has a very, very skin-like look. It also gives you more of that lived-in blush look as opposed to sitting on the surface of the face. With a liquid blush, a little bit goes a super long way. And I prefer to apply it with an actual blush brush, like the kind of blush brush that you probably already have at home. And when you apply it, you just want to get a little bit on the tips so as to not get too much product. Now, always keep in mind, you can always build up product. You can never take away product, especially when it relates to blush. So it's always best for us to start with less and add more than for us to go the other way. And smile slightly for me and turn your face. And I'm going to start right here in the full part of her cheeks, and you can see how this color is going on so subtly. And as you see, I'm working from the back part of my brush as opposed to getting too close because, again, I don't want too much pigment to go on her cheeks. So if I were to get up too close to the ferrule of the brush, then she would have a big streak of orange on her face, which we don't want. I picked this orange tone because her skin is more golden. So on golden or more warm skin tones, you will notice for blush that orange will have a tendency to be more flattering than, say, a pink. And also remember that wherever you place the brush first, that's where the most pigment goes. So we want the most pigment to be in the full part of her cheeks, and we want to buff it back. So I'm placing the pigment at the full part and pulling it back. Next, we're going to go in with a bronzer, and we're going to use a matte bronzer. We don't want too much shimmer on the face because her eyes already are the focal point, so we don't want to also have shimmer all around the face. And so I'm going to start in her hairline and buff it backwards. And we're just going to create some shadows. So we're not going to overly contour, but we are just going to add dimension to the face. And by adding dimension means we're going to accentuate the areas where the shadows are, and then just like with the highlight, where the high points of the face are. And for contour, turn your face this way, or adding dimension, you want to start kind of at the top part of the cheekbones, and you want to bring down to about where the corner of the eye is. You don't want to bring it in too far because then it will make the face look a little bit too skinny. Now, she has a perfectly angular face. However, if you feel as though you want to slenderize the bottom part of your chin, you would just come through with your bronzer and slightly add a little bit more color, which would again add a shadow there. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to do some brows. So we're going to use a clear brow gel to lay her brows down, and then we are going to use a soft brown pencil on her brows. Again, because she has a beautiful smoky eye going on, we want her brows to be softer. So my thought process with brows is this: if you're doing more of a natural eye, you can definitely play up your brows a little bit more. If you're doing more of a smoky eye, you kind of want your brows to play the back, right? So the same thing with a smoky eye. If you're doing a smoky eye, 9 times out of 10, you don't want to do a red lip unless that's the specific look you're going for. So you don't want the different features of your face to have to compete with one another. So we are going to use one of my favorite products, which is the ABH Brow Wiz pencil. And the reason why I love this pencil is because it has the brush on one side and it has the pencil on the other side. Now this may be different than some of the brow pencils that you've seen before because this actually has a very skinny tip. And the reason why I like that is because it allows me to draw more natural looking hairs as opposed to an overly aggressive brow. I feel like I have a lot more control. Her brows already have a good shape to them, so I'm just going to fill in a little bit where we need it. And I'm using a soft brown pencil on her, which is going to be more in line with the lighter colors of her hair as opposed to being in line with the darker colors of her hair. Now again, had we done a little bit more of a natural eye look, then the color that I would have chosen may have been more so in line with the roots of her hair as opposed to the highlights. And again, similar to what I was speaking about the brush, when it relates to the brow pencil, I like to hold it a little bit more further back. That way I'm getting softer strokes and less color payoff. So it just allows me to have a little bit more control. And that way I can build where I need to build and I don't get too much of a harsh brow. Okay, so we are going to finish up this beautiful look with a soft lip. Again, because she has a very bold, sultry eye going on here, we don't want the eyes to compete with the lips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do more of a neutral lip, and I'm going to start with a gloss on her first. And the reason why I'm going to start with a gloss is because then when I go in with the pencil, it won't look so harsh and so drawn on. So I'm starting kind of with like more of a natural mauve tone. And I love these glosses because they feel really, really good on the lips. Tap her lips together. And this is almost like her own lip color, just with a smidge more pigment. And then I'm going to go over top of that with a little bit more of a brown tone, just a light brown, just to lighten it just a hair. And then we are going to use a pencil to now line her. Like a harsh line, just a very soft definition. And we are finished. Thank you so much for tuning in, and feel free to shoot me an email if you would like an individual consultation. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.